Another edition of NASCAR DFS preview. I'm Austin with the Sports Chief, and we're doing things a little different here for this show. Qualifying actually took place of the day of the race, earlier around 2 o'clock or so, in Eastern time. So we're trying to make a quick video here. I did a little research prior to qualifying, but of course, as we all know, qualifying is very crucial to your DraftKings strategy. And so what we're looking at here, we're at the Coke 600 Memorial Day weekend, mile-and-a-half track, Charlotte Motor Speedway in Concord, North Carolina. The track is rather bumpy, so whenever they paved this track from the very beginning with Bruton Smith and Curtis Turner, these guys, they talked about how they had to get rocks out of the way quite a bit. So if you watch qualifying today and watch how the cars handle, this is how some of my strategy in picking my guys today went in. If you watch the way the cars handled, you could tell in the corners there's a bump like in 1 and 2, and 3 and 4 is just a little shorter corner than 1 and 2 as well. So they were holding it pretty wide open. One thing to look for, of course, it's a 600-mile race. So we have 400 laps here. Laps led are going to be very vital. So most of the time when you run at this track in the past events, most of the time there's one guy that leads it well over 100 and some laps, closer to 200 some, and you get a quarter of a point per lap led. That's just very, very major for your strategy. So picking guys towards the front is pretty important, honestly. Most other tracks, you want to pick and choose where you get your guys as far as starting spots and positive EV, things like that. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Speed as well. I think the Kurt Busch ran a 29.790 today. So a lot of the times, even back towards like 30th, 28th, 30th, around that range, they were about half a second off. So, they're pretty tight on times, but half a second means a lot at Charlotte. Of course, I'm going to look at history, past results at this track. Horsepower is very key, your engine program as well. Like I say a lot of times with mile-and-a-half tracks, the season's just so different than it ever has been, really. So it's definitely different. But we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'll kind of show you what my strategies were, what my thought process was or is in picking this race. So let's just go ahead and get at it. So DraftKings has given us the most expensive driver, Kyle Busch, starting in 11th at 11.5. Kevin Harvick starting in 22nd at 11.2. Denny Hamlin starting in 13th at 10.8. Martin Truex Jr. starting in 8th at 10.6. Brad Keselowski starting in 9th at 10.3. And rounding out our 10K guys, they tend to give us a six, pretty much every week, is Joey Logano starting in 7th. So, of course, looking at this, most of your strategies are going to say, well, Kevin Harvick starting in 22nd, he's going to have a lot of positive EV, and you'd be correct. I do think Kevin Harvick's got a top 10 car, according to history, anyway. Maybe not tonight, but we'll see. Kyle Busch is pretty dominant here. I think he won the Coke 600 a couple years ago. One guy that's really dominant here, and just scratch that Kyle Busch comment because I'm not 100% sure, is Martin Truex Jr. So Martin Truex Jr. in 7 of his last 8 starts, he's gotten top 5. It's pretty remarkable. Martin Truex was one of those guys that led 392 laps out of the 400 at the Coke 600 a couple years back. Was a great DraftKings pick. I had him in there, and he solely won me a little bit of money because I think that's just vital, especially with such a long race like this one. You've got to have somebody in there that you think can lead most of the laps. Truex has been off to a pretty rocky start this season. And, Denny Hamlin's another one that he's starting in 13th. That's pretty good value for him as well. I'm going to go with Martin Truex Jr., going to go with my gut, and as far as past performances go, he's my guy. He also, one thing that I'm looking at today is pit stalls. So I think there's going to be a lot of green flag runs. It's not going to be a wreck fest. Charlotte's typically not. As soon as I say that, it might be. But going in past history, I believe it's going to be a long endurance race. So I think that pit stalls are going to be key. And that's one thing I actually looked at. Truex is in the 4th pit stall towards the front, starting in 8th. I think he'll be hanging around there, barring a catastrophe. I think he'll get a top 5 pretty easily. I mean, 7 of your last 8 and you get top 5s, that's pretty remarkable. All right, so that's who I'm going with first. So looking here, let's just scroll on down here. And one guy, while you're watching qualifying, I'm sure most of you probably think this. I saw one car spin out, didn't even get a lap completed. I saw one car hit the wall, damaged his car pretty good. Matt DiBenedetto is the guy that damaged his car he hit the turn 4 wall pretty hard. So he's going to a backup car, from what I've heard. So he's going to be starting from the rear of the field. The 33rd spot is not going to be where he starts. So it's going to be more like 40th or 39th. So the guy I'm going with is Aric Almirola. Aric Almirola spun out, coming to the green flag. He's in the Stewart-Haas Engines car. For some reason, I had a gut feeling about Aric anyway for the start of this race. And, hey, if he gets a top 20, that is awesome. So, really like the Smithfield 10 car in this event. I think he could get us a top 15. And one thing that I really like about Aric Almirola, Denny Hamlin has that first pit stall, but Aric Almirola's got the second, so I've got 2 and 4 there in the pit stalls. So when they come down, they just got to make sure they don't speed, going all the way to their pit stalls at the end of the pit road. So I really like that spot. If there are any cautions, if he can make his way up to the front, it'll be great. One thing that I forgot to mention at the very beginning, which is very key, is that I believe it's lap 20, they're going to throw a competition caution. So that's going to be pretty important. I don't think a lot will happen in those 20 laps. We saw Darlington at the very beginning, but I think that's a benefit for Almirola, because even if he can get up to 25th or so, he can come down, come out 25th, 20th. He might gain some spots on pit roads. That'll be key. And I like his ability to run this track as well. He actually got a pole back for Richard Petty in his first start in the Coke. Might not have been the Coke 600, but it was at Charlotte Motor Speedway. I do remember that, and he got a top 10 with Richard Petty Motorsports as well. So really like Aric, and we got $7,900 to spend. So looking at this strategy here, we've got to find a guy that's going to be a cheap bargain choice, right? So Matt DiBenedetto is going to be heavily owned. I think Matt's got a fast car, of course. He's in Penske engines with the Wood Brothers. But if you look at Matt's history at this track, it's very bad, and I understand he's never been in quality equipment, but it's terrible. I mean, he's like 36th or something average finish. I mean, I'm throwing that number out there, but it's in the 30s. And even his Xfinity starts, he still is hovering around that number. So I don't know if he just doesn't have Charlotte down pat or what. I think it's definitely in his head. I think it's a mental thing. I'm not going to go with him just for the simple fact that I think a lot of people will choose him, and hopefully we kind of dodge that bullet. I know Almirola is going to be chalky, so let's just dodge the other chalk and try to take down a tournament. So that's going to be more of my strategy, a tournament strategy. So scrolling down here, if we go to the bottom, you have Galding, Quinn Houff, J.J. Yaley, driving for Tommy Baldwin, Joey Gase in 39th, Smithley 38th, 36th for B.J. McLeod, Timmy Hill 32nd. All these guys look pretty slow, and I think, honestly, you have to go LaJoy and up to get a pretty solid result. So this is a track that's very horsepower dependent. A lot of those guys are going to get lapped pretty easily. They could get 4 or 5 laps down. It's just going to be a hard hole to climb out of. Corey LaJoy starting in 24th. That car actually looked pretty quick. Michael McDowell in 27th. I would say that's a great value, but his history is kind of like Matt DiBenedetto's. I don't know why, but he looks really slow at this track. Ty Dillon actually starting in 16th. He was like in the top 3 on speed coming to the turn 3 and 4, and then he had to get out of throttle and mess his lap up. He still got 16th. Daniel Suarez starting in 37th. This would be a good start, but man, his car looked really slow. So I'm not going to go with Daniel. I think he's probably relatively 29th or 30th place finish. I don't think he could get a top 25 in that car, but one car that I do know could get a top 20, that is Cole Custer. Cole Custer looked very stable on the track, and I don't know, there wasn't a whole lot of speed there, but his car was handling really well in that Stewart-Haas Engines car, and I'm picking his teammate Almirola back there. One thing to note about Cole Custer. Cole Custer has got 4 top 10s and 5 starts in the Xfinity Series here. He's got the 9th pit stall. I like Cole Custer. So we're going with him at 6,400. That is my bargain choice. Take it or leave it, I reckon. All right, so we're going to scroll on up here, And this was really a tough decision for me. So even picking Truex was pretty tough. He wasn't my automatic choice right off the bat. But that past history is hard to argue with. And I know with Denny Hamlin, I didn't choose him in the last Darlington race. Came back to bite me. He ended up winning the race. So Hendrick engines, to me, always perform well at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Their shop is right outside the track, right down the road, rather. And I really, really think you can actually stack the whole Hendrick Motorsports crew. You can go Chase, Bowman, Jimmy. I feel like you can do that. But Bowman starting in 12th is a very good option, but it was honestly down to Jimmy Johnson and Chase Elliott for me. Jimmy looked really fast. Chase did as well. Chase has got a lot of confidence going into this race, I imagine. I'm sure he is fired up and he's ready to dominate. That's why I'm going Chase Elliott. His history is not that great here. It's okay, don't get me wrong. He's a decent driver here. Actually, the first time he started third here a few years back, he led most of the race and ended up wrecking, but he dominated. It wasn't the Coke 600. It was the 500-miler. But I really like him in this event. And I think Jimmy can do pretty well as well, but I like Chase to lead most of the laps tonight. He would be my choice to win the race, other than Martin Truex Jr. So that's my pick there, $7,900 to spend, folks. And now we're down here with like Kurt Busch, Willie Byron. If you pick him, you got $6,800 to spend. You're down here with Buescher and Bell, which is not bad. Ryan Newman could be a very good option as well. The one guy that I'm going to go with tonight is Ryan Blaney. Oh, and let me go back to this. Chase Elliott, by the way, has the 5th pit stall. So we got the 4th and 5th pit stalls with Truex and Elliott. Cole Custer's got 9th. So I'm picking a lot of guys that are up at the front in terms of pit stalls. What I'm going to go with here is Ryan Blaney starting in 26th. So that is my option as far as the Penske engines go. I think that he's easily a top 15 finisher. I just think he's one of those picks you have to go with. So, I don't see picking Eric Jones being a better value for you. You could go that route, but you'd be with Matt Benedetto. So even if you pick Ryan Blaney, you can still go Matt DiBenedetto. You could even go Matt Kenseth. With Matt looked really quick. I was really hoping Tyler Reddick was going to qualify worse than 5th because he looked pretty quick too. And Austin Dillon's actually pretty good here. He won a 600. So I'm just going to blow a lot of people's minds and might get a lot of flack for this, but I'm going to go with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. starting in 17th spot. That car looked really quick on the track, and Ricky hasn't had a finish outside the top 20 since 2015. Believe it or not, Ricky Stenhouse is very consistent at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And think about it. If he gets us like a 20th place finish, I've got Almirola, I've got Custer, and Blaney that could bail me out. Therefore, Stenhouse is kind of not the throwaway pick necessarily, but he is like that high risk, high reward pick that you want to go with in a tournament. And I think he finished 5th here last year. So it's not like it's a bad option. He's in a different car, but hey, Stenhouse also has that Hendrick engine program with JTG Daugherty, and I really like it. So he's in the 32nd pit stall, so he's towards the very back. He'll be able to pull it in, come out pretty quick. He's like Jimmy Johnson. He's back in that range. So really like that spot for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. So let's clean it up here. And I'm just going to see here. So if you were to do like all Hendrick stack, if you picked all 4 Hendrick drivers, you'd have $6,300 to spend. You could go, let me just see here. You could do like Daniel Suarez and Christopher Bell. That's not a bad option. And I don't think it's a terrible thing to go with an all Hendrick stack because they could very well all finish in the top 5. They're just that fast. And I do like Cole Custer a lot tonight. So you can go Cole Custer and then maybe a Daniel Suarez if you feel comfortable. Or you could do, I don't know about Ryan Preece. I think Bubba Wallace is actually pretty quick. So you could do Bubba Wallace, and he's Richard Childress engines, but still Chevy. And you could actually pick like Ryan Newman or Chris Buescher, and I don't think that's a bad lineup there, folks. So you could have 2 guys at the front, 2 guys in the sub-10s. This is a good cash game lineup. It would really irk me to go between Preece and Wallace. Preece starting in 29 seems like a little better option. Don't let that 37th spot persuade you to pick Suarez, folks. I don't think that car is fast at all. All right, so we're going to see what the Sports Chief, I'll just show you what my final lineup is in tournaments. Martin Truex Jr. starting in 8th at 10-6. Chase Elliott starting in 3rd at 9-7. Scroll down here to Ryan Blaney starting in 26th at 8-1. Eric Almirola starting in 40th at 7-5. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. starting in 17th at 6-7. And rounding out the Sports Chiefs lineup, Cole Custer starting in 28th, folks. So there you have it. Hopefully we can take down the big tournament today. It's a $200K first place prize, which is pretty awesome. I think it's like $2 million total purse, so it's pretty cool. By the way, that Hendrick lineup, I think it's a good one. I think as far as the cash game strategy goes, if you're doing some double ups, pick all of those Hendrick guys. Try to. One driver to note, Ross Chastain is starting in 21st, so he's in the 77. It is Spire Motorsports, but it is a Chip Ganassi engine's car. So it is a Chip Ganassi car, not a Spire Motorsports car. So, that car's got a lot of speed. Matt Kenseth starting in 4th, and Kurt Busch put it on the pole. So take it or leave it. See what you want for there. I didn't go with him, but I think he's a good option. If you like what you see, subscribe to the YouTube channel here below. Also, click that bell for notifications whenever we go live, or, when I put up my video. We may do live videos soon, but we'll see. Follow us on Twitter at The Sports Chief. Also, The Sports Chief on Instagram. We do a lot of things from wrestling, NASCAR, etc. We even did like a history article about the mech deck Garrett did. That was pretty cool. So, for all you history buffs out there. So hopefully everyone has a great Memorial Day weekend. Thank you for all those that are serving our country. We salute you here, Sports Chief, and we're very thankful for all those men and women that work very hard to keep this country free and safe. So pray that everybody has a lot of fun watching the Coke 600, and have a good race weekend.